Okay. Let's get this going. This is the first chapter first part for the 7th Time Loop, Volume 2. Chapter 1. For a few days after her kidnapping, Riche recuperated in her nice fluffy bed. She kept her gardening work to the bare minimum, left the maids training to Diana, and ate plenty of nutritious food. While she did fill out order forms to merchants and continue her nail polish business plan from bed, she mostly just slept. A lot. With the help of a medicine she created herself, she fully recovered within, 5 days. After receiving a clean bill of health from the palace physician, she paid a visit to a certain room in the castle, feeling tense. Enter. Stilling herself, Riche stepped into her fiancé's office. Good day, Your Highness. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to see me. Arnold stopped writing and slowly set his pen down next to his papers. This is the first time you've ever called a formal meeting. Riche was in an utter ball of nerves. Her plan, which had been in the making for a long time, was entering its final stages. For the sake of the maids who had escorted her here, and for herself, she had to perform her duty. Everything will be fine. I've done the best that I could. Arnold returned her uneasy look with a composed smile. What could this meeting be about, I wonder? You're far too anxious to have come solely to see your fiancé's face. Yeah, she's got something she's got to do. You've seen right through me, Riche said. Let me get straight to the point then. Arnold's attendant Oliver threw her a cautious look. She took a deep breath and after letting the tension sufficiently build, declared, Your rooms in the detached palace are ready. Arnold's brow furrowed. What? What is she planning? Because as far as I know, she was planning on staying in the detached palace at least until she got married. Why is she getting him involved in this? Even twisted in a grimace, his face was handsome. Riche couldn't help but notice as she explained. You have an office on the 2nd floor and a bedroom on the 4th. The top floor, I apologize for the long wait. The chambers had in reality been ready a short while ago, but she hadn't wanted Arnold present until her maids were master cleaners. Taking care of the Crown Prince when they were still learning their jobs would have been unnecessarily stressful. You've got a study and a place to sleep, so feel free to move into the detached palace anytime. If you'd like, I can escort you there right now. Riche's enthusiasm did not lessen Arnold's natural sullenness. That's what you came here to tell me? Yes, that's right. Arnold sighed. Then what were you so nervous about? Nerves are natural. Do you know how hard my precious maids have worked for this day? This is like a graduation exam for them, so of course I'm nervous. Riche knew how hard the maids had all worked to make it thus far. Their days began early in the morning, and they assisted each other whenever they could. Once the maids finished their tasks, they studied reading and writing and put that knowledge to use in their next day's work. Riche had done all the final checks, the windows were polished to a sparkle, and the sheets were pristine. So great was their improvement that their teachers, the senior maids like Diana, were moved to tears. Despite my nerves, I am confident that the rooms are of the highest quality. Please, I invite you to come see them. He sighed again and rested his chin in his hand. I thought you wanted to live by yourself in the palace. Well, I mean, of course he would think that, considering that's what she asked for. Of course I don't. I wouldn't live there with you, Prince Arnold. That was the whole point of a detached wing, to distance Arnold from the main palace, which was far too big for Riche. It seemed to surprise the prince, but then his expression softened into a smile. I see. His gaze almost convinced Riche that he knew her true intentions. Another amusing scheme, I presume. Perish the thought. He was exactly right, in a way. Maybe he really could read minds. Riche felt her panic rising. If Arnold grew suspicious, he might decide against moving into the detached palace. As she fretted, Arnold stood up. Very well, I'll go along with your little plot. After all, you've already improved one thing for me. Huh? Riche sputtered. I have? Improved what? My mood. Let's go. Of course he says that. Of course it improved his mood. His fiancée wants to live with him, but she's got an ulterior motive. Riche glanced at Oliver in confusion, but he just bowed his head, wearing a wry smile and mouthing the words, thank you. I guess His Highness was in a bad mood before I came in. I guess so. I guess from Oliver's point of view, yeah, he was. Somehow his mood had lightened. Wondering what could have possibly caused that, Riche hurried to catch up. Yeah, I think it was you. The fact that you asked him to move into the detached wing with you brightened his mood up. And this is your bedroom, Your Highness, Riche told Arnold, standing beside him at the door. Several maids watched anxiously from a little ways down the hall, likely wondering what he thought of the office he'd just seen. Rishi caught their eyes, smiling and nodding. The maids' faces lit up, and they grabbed for each other's hands. Rishi's cheeks flushed with pleasure at the sight, and then she opened the door. The color blue dominated the bedroom, which was perfectly neat from one corner to the other. Arnold's would-be bed featured a deep azure canopy, tightly fitted sheets, and fluffy pillows. A round amber-colored desk sat beside it. A finely woven rug lined the floor, a high-quality piece that muffled Arnold's footsteps to silence and bore not a speck of dust. What do you think? It's a fine room, is it not? Yeah. Arnold's honest praise delighted Rishi. I consulted with Oliver and decided to give you the bare minimum of furniture so when you moved in, you could bring your own bookshelves and whatever else you might want. That works. Still, I'm surprised. Arnold stood in the center of the room looking around with a great interest. This place hasn't been used in years. I'm impressed you did all this in just 3 weeks. Wow, 3 weeks? Really? It only took 3 weeks, huh? This is going along quick. She giggled. Aren't my maids great? Very impressive indeed. Arnold turned to look at her. You took new hires and trained them up correct. They prepared a palace for the royal family. With the crown prince himself acknowledging their skill, they'll never have trouble finding work again. Exactly right, Rishi said. With that assurance, they need not ever worry about their futures. And that's not all they'll gain. Rishi tilted her head. Pride, Arnold explained. They'll feel pride for a job well done. That may not be a necessity for survival, but there are times when it will keep you alive. Slowly, Arnold lowered his eyes. Rishi couldn't say for sure, but he seemed happy. He gazed at her like he was looking at something important. You've got a talent for making people feel proud of themselves. Rishi had no idea what he was talking about. She stared back at him dazed until his shoulders began to tremble. A puff of laughter escaped his lips. Is that any sort of face to make when I compliment you? His amusement made her sigh. I was just trying to see if you were teasing me or not. You wound me. Those are my heartfelt thoughts. How sad. Well, even if you didn't mean it, I'll happily accept your praise. Hey, that doesn't mean that he didn't mean that. She'd take a compliment from this incomparable man any time. Arnold's eyes widened, and Risha smiled, pleased to get back at him. By the way, did you notice? This room gets the most sunlight in the entire wing. If you open the window, there is a very pleasant breeze. It's the perfect place to nap. I don't often find myself returning to my bedroom during the day, unfortunately, Arnold said. You should have kept this room for yourself. Oh? The best room in the house, for a hostage. I'm planning for a life of ease here. Taking this room would be going too far. A shiftless empress-to-be shouldn't have such nice things. What? Shiftless. I'll have to look up what that means. Arnold looked dubious, but ultimately did not comment further. Come to think of it, your room's just next to this one, right? Yes, I figured having our rooms close by would be easier on security. Yeah, it definitely would. Because if they're right next to each other, all you have to do is have the guards, like just 4 guards, and they'd be close by and be able to alert if anything happens. That's easier on me too, Arnold agreed. I might catch wind of your antics before they become a problem. Oh boy. Oh, I have no more antics planned. Just lazing around from now on. Well, she paused. Maybe 1 or 2. Don't be stupid, Arnold said softly, exasperated. You can do as you like as long as you don't put yourself at risk anymore, okay? I'm sorry. Feeling repentant from the scolding, Rishi recalled something she wanted to ask him. By the way, Your Highness, speaking of antics, allow me to beg your permission. For what? At Arnold's wary question, Rishi flashed a sunny smile. You're serious about this? Arnold asked. Rishi nodded, beaming. Yes, of course. They stood in a small training yard in a corner of the palace grounds. The knights who served as Rishi's guards eyed her with worry. They'd all traveled down to the practice area from Arnold's bedroom following a brief exchange. Would you do me the honor of dueling with me, Your Highness? Ooh, this is gonna be good! Yeah, because she can fight. I mean, she clashed blades with him at one point in her previous life and died, but still. Let's see how she handles. Rishi had inquired after the tour. It had been 3 weeks since she first brought up the idea, and she was worried he might have forgotten. It seemed he hadn't. Come to think of it, you asked the same thing at the party, didn't you? I'm pleased you remembered. The recent difficulties have made me keenly aware of my lack of stamina and immediate need for further training. Ah, yeah, because in her previous life, she did have all that stamina and stuff because she had trained for it, but in this life right now, she hadn't had that training, which means her body is still, well, lacking. Yeah, Rishi's stamina, musculature, and cardiovascular conditioning were all far from where they had been during her life as a knight. These attributes improved gradually over time, so she wanted to begin as soon as possible. I know you're quite busy, but I would very much appreciate some instructions, if only once. Naturally, I wouldn't ask you to keep me company for the entire training session, Rishi met Arnold's eyes. I also like to learn the secret method you and the Imperial Knights used to enhance your training, Your Highness. Huh. Arnold's lips curled up in interest. How did you know about that? My garden is near the Knights' training grounds. I've observed the drills of several different squads, and your Imperial Knights are a cut above the rest. Outside of the training sessions, Rishi also observed the Knights carefully as they guarded her, noting how they would never let themselves open. Not all of Godkind's Knights were like that, only those serving Arnold. From there, Rishi surmised the obvious. He was directly responsible for their instruction. Unsurprisingly, seeing as they were led by a man with even more impressive defenses than their own. If they have a particular training regimen, I'd love to learn it. Rishi vividly recalled a moment of her previous life. When we fought Godkind's army, Arnold was by far the biggest threat, but his knights were no pushovers either. Well, I would assume not. They were all frighteningly strong, not just the unit commanders. Each individual knight on the front lines displayed phenomenal skill in battle. Right now, I believe it's just Prince Arnold's personal knights who possess this unusual prowess. I don't think the rest of Godkind's knights are at their level, which means that in the next 5 years, he's going to put together that terrifying army. There was no way he could script only superior talents. The scale of that force made that impossible. He must have some specific way of training people up, and if that's the case, I need to learn it. Yeah, that'd be a good idea, just in case anything else were to happen, because we still don't know what caused the war. We have a hint that it could have been something happening to his little brother, and that started the war, possibly. It's a theory, anyway. But it is a possibility, because we still don't know, because something causes the war to happen in each of her previous lives. And she ends up getting caught up in it somehow every time. Rishi looked at him, a few silent seconds passing. She refused to give in, and their staring contest finally concluded with a short sigh from Arnold. All right. Her eyes widened. She wasn't expecting him to agree so readily. His earlier acquiescence had just been for standard training. Are you sure? Not to work against my own interest here, but isn't it a military secret? It's not a breach of protocol for the Crown Prince's wife to know his secrets. I did promise I'd do anything you asked of me, after all. Arnold's voice was softer than usual. It caught Rishi off guard. Well, thank you. I'm very happy that you said yes. You're happy? Baffled, Arnold stared at Rishi. Why? Because from what I know, your sword technique is the strongest and most beautiful of anyone in the world. He's like, what? As a former knight, she was naturally delighted to learn from someone like that. Arnold looked stunned for a moment before he smiled. The whole world, huh? I obviously didn't mean that literally, Rishi rushed to clarify. It's just an expression, got it? How could techniques for killing people possibly be beautiful? Arnold asked with a self-deprecating tone. Your Highness, go change into something you can move in. I'll meet you at the training grounds. Thus, they'd met one another outside to square off. Bring the restraints. Arnold ordered one of the knights. 1 for Rishi and 3 for me. What? Why only 1 for Rishi and 3 for... I guess, well, yeah, because you're so freaking good at it, you might accidentally hurt her if you're not careful, so the 3 restraints would probably be better for you. Yes, sir. The knights briskly followed Arnold's command, though he and his comrades spared Rishi a few fretful glances all the while. Returning with the wooden crate, the knight handed it to his master. Arnold reached in and fished something out. A belt? Put this on. Arnold proffered a harness resembling a pair of suspenders connected to a belt. He explained how to use it, putting his arms through another pair of belts, crossing them over each other, and fastening them to the one around his waist. When you're done, turn around. Rishi did as she was told and turned away from him. One of Arnold's black-gloved hands grasped Rishi's left wrist. He wrapped a thin belt around it, brought her arm behind her back, and fastened the belt on her wrist to the one on her waist. With her arm bound this way, she couldn't use her left hand. Oh, okay, so this is supposed to be like fighting with your hand tied behind your back. Our special training consists of binding one part of the body to prevent free use of your limbs. Arnold said binding himself in the same way. The only difference was that Rishi had her right free and Arnold did not. You always train like this? Not always. Too much and will pick up bad habits, rendering it pointless. Affixing the belts with a practiced hand, Arnold reached into the crate and brought out something else, leaving the belt on his wrist unconnected. The new tool resembled a modified knee pad, which Arnold proceeded to wrap around his knee. He's making it impossible to bend his left leg. Next, he took out a black eye. Wait, what the fuck? Dude, what are you doing? Are you trying to give yourself much of a handicap here? covering his right eye and tying the cord behind his head. Finally, a knight reverently stepped forward and fastened Arnold's wrist to the belt of his waist. All in all, he was left unable to use his dominant right arm, his left leg, or his right eye. Riche, on the other hand, only lost the use of her left arm. Wow. We'll spar like this. Swords. At Arnold's signal, one of the knights handed Riche a wooden practice weapon. Riche thanked the knight and took a stance, holding the sword in one hand. She immediately felt how much having one arm bound threw her off her center of gravity, as well as the deep strain on her muscles from holding a two-handed sword in one-handed grip. Yet the training was even more complex than that. Do you bind the limbs to stimulate a true battlefield? Oh, you can tell? If it was just to improve core and muscle strength, there would be no need to cover one eye, Your Highness. Watching Arnold accept his own wooden sword from one of the knights, Riche went on, this training is to ensure the loss of a body part on the battlefield doesn't prevent you from fighting. Am I right? Oh, okay, so if you accidentally lose an arm or something, you can still fight pretty much the same way, essentially. Where is she going to have to be ambidextrous on this one, where they bind one arm and then later on when she's comfortable fighting just that way, then they do the same thing with the other arm? That way, no matter if she was to lose a limb, no matter which one it was, she'd still be able to fight? I'm assuming that's what it is. Arnold laughed with his whole chest, pointing his sword at Riche. Your powers of observation are as impressive as always. Unlike Riche, Arnold was using his non-dominant arm, made even slower by the old wound on his shoulder. Still, he didn't leave himself open to attack. It's hard to see you as a noble girl who's never been to war. Attention in the air made Riche's skin tingle. The knights all took a seemingly unconscious step back, trusting their instincts. If you're injured, you won't be able to use your arm. If blood splatters on your face, your eye may be temporarily incapacitated. But the battle rages on and your enemies will continue to press you. Vivid memories of the battlefield swirled in Riche's mind. If your arm is torn off, keep swinging your sword. If your leg is smashed, keep moving forward. If you lose both eyes, find a way to cut into your enemy for as long as you have left. Arnold fixed his eyes on Riche, his gaze razor sharp. If that's what all this is for. How can he convey such pressure with one eye covered up? Training in these circumstances helps us stay alive out there. Riche swallowed. No wonder I couldn't beat him. The knightly chivalry Riche knew was akin to an art. Even with a sword in hand, fighting for one's country, beauty, and nobility was important. The greatest honor was in a clean fight, one that shamed neither you nor your enemy, and ultimately offering your life in exchange for your lord's. During her time as a knight, Riche staked her life on protecting the royal family she served, and in the end she had died. Godkind's knights are trained to continue struggling despite disgrace, no matter the situation they find themselves in. To that end, they kill as many enemies as they possibly can. Riche had faced this man as a foe before, and fate might yet again pit the two of them against each other. She squeezed the wooden sword in her hand. I hope not. Arnold chuckled. Normally, I'd wait to spar with a knight until they've been through basic training, but since I'm up against you, I'm covering just one eye, not both. Wow! What would you do? You're fighting? How would that work? Oh dear, that would be interesting to see. I'm honored, Your Highness. No need to worry, I don't intend to let any harm come to my bride before our wedding. Arnold's confidence clearly stemmed from the overwhelming difference in their abilities. After a moment's thought, she had said, if I win, would you answer one question of mine, no matter what it is? In exchange, if I lose, I'll do any one thing you ask of me, Your Highness. It depends on what he wants. You might be putting yourself in a corner there, girl. Arnold looked momentarily startled before smiling. He seemed to be looking forward to another potential scheme. Very well. All right, said Riche, let's do this. A knight gave the signal to start, and Arnold brandished his wooden sword at Riche. His form was beautiful, but it was full of holes. It clearly said, come at me. A lopsided skill level was nothing new to Riche, and she didn't hesitate to take up her own sword, once again confirming the state of her limbs. The belt in her left arm was attached to her back by a hook. She wasn't bound particularly tightly. She still had some range of motion, but her range was limited by the structure of her joints. Plus, just holding the heavy wooden sword with one arm was difficult, thanks to her current lack of muscle. The longer we exchange blows, the worse my disadvantage becomes. I have to launch a direct attack. Riche took a short breath, and leaped into Arnold's striking range in a single bound. Arnold didn't move. She swung her sword diagonally, aiming for the right side of his face. Clang! A loud sound rang out as Arnold lifted his blade to catch Riche's blow. She'd put muscle into her swing, but the impact didn't so much as jar his arm. So that's how it is, huh? In that case... She pivoted, spinning with the force of the blow. Arnold easily blocked her second swing as well. Their swords crossed and clashed, their eyes likewise lacking from either side. Arnold's one uncovered eye narrowed in mirth. What's wrong? Is that all you got? Risha shivered at Arnold's sincere enjoyment. She sprang back and held her sword up once more, catching her breath. My center of gravity is completely off. My grip isn't strong enough. Yearning to use both of my hands is holding me back. She listed off the problems facing her, trying to think of countermeasures. If I reorientate my center of gravity, my reach will change. I'll have to advance further to get in range of His Highness. She calculated her distance in her head and planted her feet where they needed to be. Since she couldn't do anything about her grip strength, she compensated by holding the sword higher to transfer more strength down the length of the blade. She had to ensure she didn't try to regain her balance with her left arm either. Makeshift solutions wouldn't secure her victory, but they were better than nothing. One more time. Arnold goaded her with a look, and Risha took a breath, exhaled, and lunged. Yeah! He blocked her first swing. She pulled back, slashing at him twice more, forcing herself into close quarters. She tried an upward swing, but he blocked that too, pushing her back. Huh. He sounded impressed, sorry. He'd stopped her, but before now he'd just been holding his sword up to parry her blows. This was the first time there was any real swordplay brought to bear. Risha jumped back again, gaining some distance from him. Hey, Lady Risha has only exchanged a few blows with His Highness, but her form has changed a lot, hasn't it? It doesn't seem possible, but you might be right. Ignoring the knight's commentary, Risha rushed at Arnold. She strove to find a way forward as he blocked and repelled her attacks. Your movements are stiff. Don't challenge me with your strength. Make better use of your feet. Risha gasped at his critiques before immediately adjusting her strategy as they sparred. She knew she could never beat a man in a contest of strength and thought back to when she had been desperate to make up for that weakness. Use your agility. Step in with your left foot. A little further. That's not enough. One more step. There. Risha stepped forward as Arnold suggested, engaging again and again. She was getting the knack back. It was a strange feeling, like she'd done this so long ago yet so recently at the same time. For his part, Arnold's guidance was straightforward and precise. Wow, it took me 5 years to move like this in my life as a knight. Well, that's because you didn't have someone like Arnold teaching you. Arnold could likely judge the best strategy just by looking at his opponent up and down, but Risha had no intention of giving up. As she got back into the swing of things, her field of view opened more and more, granting her the ability to read Arnold the same way he was reading her. The Arnold Hind of that one fateful day flashed through her mind. Right. She pulled back, the blow coming from exactly where she'd expected. Arnold's sword just barely scraped against Risha's. If she hadn't dodged when she did, he would have sent her weapon flying. Now he'll step into my reach and swing down from above. In her battle with Arnold 5 years from now, he'd moved in just the same way. Risha the Knight had parried the blow with a defensive stance. She remembered how, but her current physique couldn't take that strain. Instead, she took one more step back, feeling Arnold's sword graze her bangs. She knew he would stop before his swing actually hit her, but she broke into a cold sweat. Regardless, instinctively afraid, she dodged with everything she had, losing her balance and staggering back a few steps. Arnold pulled a strike at the last second, expression changing. You said that as far as you knew, my swordplay is the strongest there is. That was what Risha had told them in their earlier conversation. But just now, you reacted as if you'd faced someone even stronger than I am. You're thinking of him as we cross swords, aren't you? Ah! Yes, but it's not another person, it's you! It's you! Is that a joke? Arnold wore a provocative smile, but his gaze was sharp. Risha adjusted her sword grip. It's almost enough to make me jealous. You jest, she said, boldly meeting his eyes. And I meant what I said. You're the strongest person that I know, Prince Arnold. He wasn't wrong, per se. Risha was thinking of the Emperor Arnold Hahn from 5 years in the future. He was stronger, crueler, and far more imposing than the current crown prince. That man had slaughtered her entire order of knights. He would never condescend to saying something like, I have no intention of letting any harm come to you. Come now, pay a little more attention to me, Arnold smirked, relishing the exchange. This newly casual tone he was taking with her made her actually seem like the 19-year-old boy he was. Or made him seem like made him actually seem like the 19-year-old boy he was. In response, Risha held her sword up and lowered her stance. She took a step forward, then another, slowly closing the distance between them. Arnold raised his own weapon. They breathed as one, and she lunged forward, striking out to the side. He dodged her slash. Risha slipped past him and spun around without a moment's delay. Arnold twirled at the same time, swiping out at her. Their swords made strong contact. The blades clashed up high, went low, then clashed high again. The clash of wood smacking against wood rang out, and Risha's hand went numb. Arnold might have had one eye covered and one leg restrained, but you never would have known from the way he moved. I'm not done yet. She took half a step back, then sprang forward again, swinging her sword once more. Arnold dodged backwards, and Risha's sword hit air, but she didn't stop her charge. That feeling, the moment I was able to land one blow on Arnold Hine. She scoured her memory, putting all her strength into her final attack. For a split second, Arnold's face lit up with surprise. Then he slashed out and knocked Risha's blade off course. It was over. Ah! A sword flew from her hand, grazing the cheek of a dazed night spectator. Whoopsie! Sorry! It finally slammed into the training area's stone wall. Wow! Whoa. Oh no, are you okay? Risha tried to run over to the knights, but her legs gave out and she fell to her knees. I'm impressed. Arnold looked down at Risha, not even a little out of breath. I only planned to take on taking a single step at most, but I underestimated you. As if you weren't dripping with handicaps. If it weren't anyone other than you, I wouldn't have had to move at all. Ignoring Risha, whose shoulders were heaving as she tried to catch her breath, Arnold signaled the knights. One of them rushed over and undid his restraints. Arnold removed the knee restraint on his own and knelt in front of Risha, freeing her left arm. Thank you very much for your instruction. Oy. Rishi had known the loss was inevitable, but it still disappointed her. It must have shown on her face because Arnold rested his elbow on his knee, chin in his palm, and smiled. What was our agreement? That you do any one thing I asked you to? Uh-oh. Like I said, this could go any kind of way, girl. You should have made a limitation on that one. You should have made a limitation on nothing sexual. Because that could have been an option. And I don't know if it is. Yes, go ahead and ask, Rishi declared, hopeless. I don't go back on my word. Without a serious chance of winning, Risha had ensured this was a bet worth making whether she won or lost. If by some miracle she'd won, she would have been allowed one question of the Crown Prince. If she lost, as she suspected she would, she could see what kind of request he'd make. Thus she was one step closer to figuring out why he proposed to her. This was all according to plan. I'm not mad about it. Nope, not even a little. She tried to convince herself otherwise, but she was incredibly frustrated. Arnold watched her for a time, eventually removing his eye patch and saying, well, let's see. Leave your afternoon open 2 days from now. We're going into town. Into town? Of course I'll come, but what are you doing exactly? I'll tell you then. Arnold stood handing his eye patch to a waiting knight. Some kind of crown prince and fiancé official business? I would say he just wants to take you out on a date. Maybe? I assume her one question, if she had somehow miraculously won, would have been, what would make you go to war? I think that would be my question anyway. What would make you challenge the whole world to war or something like that? That would have been my question. Risha decided there was no use pondering the matter now, although she realized that she hadn't been in town since she went to see Mr. Tully. She'd snuck out, gotten caught, and thereafter promised Arnold she wouldn't visit the town without him. He was always a step ahead of her. As she stared off into the distance, he stared down at her, perplexed. What's wrong? Get up already. From the ground, Risha wouldn't meet his eyes. I'll stay here for a little longer. Please feel free to leave, Your Highness. Why? She didn't want to tell him, but she figured she had to. Resigning herself to her shame, she slowly said, well, to tell you the truth, my arms and legs are still shaking from our little match. What? My body isn't equipped to keep up with how I was moving. Risha felt truly pathetic. If she tried to stand now, she'd just fall face first on the ground. I'm just taking a little rest. I'll be sure to close up the training grounds when I leave, so don't worry. Your Highness? His expression turned pensive. Wearing gloves means it's fine, right? Huh? Risha had a very bad feeling. I think he's either going to pick you up or help you up. Something like that. I'm assuming he's going to pick you up since you probably wouldn't be able to stand on your own. Her instincts were telling her to say no, but she didn't know what he was asking. Before he could properly reply, Arnold knelt in front of her and reached out with his gloved hands. Hey, Your Highness, Risha was lifted abruptly from the ground, Arnold holding her in his arms. I knew it. Knew it. As soon as Risha's mind had caught up, she opened her mouth and screamed, What? She reflexively flailed her legs. Arnold studied her, the picture of calm. Don't struggle, you'll fall. Well, no, what are you doing? You can't stand on your own, right? Arnold said, striding off as he carried Risha, bridal style. I thought that was what he was going to do. Realizing he intended to take her all the way to her room like this, Risha blanched. Let me down, let me down, let me down! I just need a breather, so please don't trouble yourself. Again, don't struggle. Why not? It's not like struggling will do me a bit of good. True. Risha kept that thought to herself as Arnold looked at her in exasperation. Do you really think I could just leave my fiancé on the ground and go back to work? Okay, maybe he's got a point, but still. Risha had an iron grip on her composure in ordinary circumstances, but this was just too much. Arnold Hyman himself was carrying her in his arms. With her limbs still immobile from fatigue, there was nothing she could do to extract herself from the situation. She gazed at the knights imploringly, but when their eyes met, the men just furiously shook their heads. They were as flustered as she was. Somebody save me! She was shouting on the inside, but no one came to her rescue. The knights they passed on their way out of the training area watched them with blank looks of shock, like they were seeing something incomprehensible. To his credit, Arnold chose a route to avoid contact with crowds, although reaching the detached wing without meeting anyone would have been impossible. Your Highness, Rishi yelped, isn't carrying me around like this exhausting? If you're worried about that, make it easier on me and stop struggling. She'd been arguing for her release, but now she'd gone and made it harder to complain. At a complete loss, Rishi noticed something even more outrageous. Huh? Wait, hold on. There we go. All this time, she'd been holding onto the lapel of Arnold's jacket. She must have grabbed it automatically when he picked her up and had been squeezing it ever since. Should I let go? I should let go, right? What do I do with my hand after that? Set them in your lap? Because he's carrying you bridal style, so you can just set them in your lap. I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, only thing you can do after that would be, putting them around his neck. That'd be kind of weird. And probably make you blush like crazy. Her head was spinning, but Arnold spoke to her, completely unaware of her in consternation. Come to think of it, what did you want to ask me? Richard looked up at him, not expecting the question. Before the duel, you said you wanted to ask me something if you want. You want to talk about this now? Yeah. He's laughing. Arnold had noticed her distress, and he was clearly enjoying it, but he was also helping her when she couldn't move on her own. She didn't have strong grounds for an objection. Eventually, Rishi changed tack and outright bombarded Arnold with questions instead. When is your What the fuck? Why would you ask when is your birthday? Puzzled, Arnold blinked a few times and answered the 28th day of the 12th month. So you were born in winter, and what are your hobbies? I don't really have any. Come on, tell me what you like to do, Your Highness. I never really thought about it. What sort of woman do you prefer, then? Why do you... He prefers you! You don't need to ask that question! He prefers you! Why else would he have proposed? Oh my god! Despite his willingness to answer, she barely squeezed any information out of him. He didn't dodge her questions, though. His responses seemed sincere. I can't ask my real question out in public, especially not in this position. Dwelling on her predicament once more, Rishi was reminded of just how uncomfortable she was. Even in the face of her renewed resistance, Arnold refused to put her down. Probably not until he gets to your room and sets you on the bed. That's probably what he's going to do. Lady Rishi! Rishi's attendant, Elsie, squeaked as they arrived at her room in the detached palace. Even the impassive Elsie gaped when she saw her mistress in Arnold's arms. Elsie! Her maid rushed over to her, and Rishi clung to Elsie as soon as her feet hit the floor. Seeing Rishi's exhausted state, Arnold said, keep resting. Don't push yourself before the feeling returns to your arms and legs. I'm not feeling faint from the duel anymore, she thought, but she swallowed it down. Declaring he had work to do, Arnold returned to the main palace. As soon as he was out of sight, the knights who had normally never entered Rishi's room ran mindlessly to her side. Are you alright, Lady Rishi? We're so sorry we weren't able to help you. There was nothing we could do. We were powerless on several fronts. It's fine, Rishi said. I understand your position. The two knights had at least warned observers off with the fierce eyes and expressions on their way here. She appreciated that. Still, one of them added, you're not hurt, are you? Not from training with His Highness. Don't worry, I'm perfectly fine. Just as Arnold promised, he hadn't let any harm come to Rishi, another aspect of his superior skills. I'm glad to hear it, one knight told her. We were awfully surprised to hear Prince Arnold planned to give you his special training, Lady Rishi. That was the safest of his special training methods, said the other. Then today's match wasn't just one of his several skills like I thought? Or several drills like I thought? Arnold had more strategies up his sleeve. Her suspicions confirmed, Rishi closed her eyes. While I don't need to attend the maid's training every morning anymore, my field isn't quite stable yet, but it only needs a couple of checks a day. My dealings with the Arya Trading Company are waiting on Mr. Tully. I have plenty of other preparations, but once I get started on those, I won't have time for anything else. If I want to do this, now's the time. Renewing her determination, she looked at her maid. I'm sorry if I gave you a shock, Elsie. Has my order arrived from the Arya Trading Company? Yes, Lady Rishi, it's right here. Elsie gestured for a crate in the corner of the room. I'll have to act fast. Thankfully, that duel has scraped off some of the rust. Rishi clenched her fist. Time to get started on the stamina-building section of my plans for a long and cushy life. That day, a score of trainees gathered in the palace's 5th training grounds. People who youths who straddled the border between childhood and adolescence. Clad in brand-new training garb, they listened tensely as a knight addressed them. That will be your schedule for the next 10 days. As I mentioned, this training will focus on you new recruits who have yet to become knights. For some, this is part of your noble education. For others, it's a chance to select promising personnel from the citizens. Keep that in mind, the knight said, eyeing a few of the lined-up trainees. No matter your birth, results are valued above all else. I look forward to seeing how you all progress. Yes, sir. You there. The instructor addressed a young boy with brown hair standing at the back of the pack. Lucius, wasn't it? Excellent projection, son. Speak from the stomach and your voice will carry even on the battlefield. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Rishi, addressed by the male name of Lucius, gave a vigorous response. Oh, no! She'd slightly altered her face with makeup, donned a boyish short-style wig, and now stood tall with a binding cloth wrapped around her chest to flatten it. Oh, no! What's Arnold gonna do? Good, a successful infiltration. Her life as a knight wasn't Rishi's first time cross-dressing. As a merchant, she had traveled the world selling her wares. Even though she'd hired a handful of guards, setting off on a voyage was still dangerous for a young woman, so she often dressed as a man when she was lacking in protection. The name she was using now, Lucius, was the same name she'd used for past disguises. It doesn't look like anyone's realized yet. No one here knows me after all. Her coral-colored hair was carefully folded on top of her head under a net. Even very long hair could be corralled with this method. On top of that, she wore a high-quality wig she'd ordered from the Aria Trading Company. I've disguised myself thoroughly, but it's thanks to Prince Theodore that no one suspects my background. Woo woo! You got Theodore on your side! Woo woo! When Rishi had asked him for this favor, Theodore, the younger prince of Galkine, grimaced spectacularly. Are you really asking me for this? Yesterday she had visited him in his office, where he'd reacted to her request with palpable disgust. Tossing his unruly black hair, he put both elbows on his desk, resting his head in his hands. You want to join the cadets' training, and as a man. First of all, you're crazy. Second of all, why do I have to help? Well, didn't you answer that in your own letter? You told me I could count on you whenever I needed to. I did. I didn't know why, but I did. Theodore blushed, his voice jumping in volume. Clearly he wanted to hear no mention of the letter. Listen, sister. When I wrote that, it was with the understanding that you'd request something from the people in the slums of the city's underground. Unfortunately, what I need most is stamina, and not for just my own sake. It's for Prince Arnold's as well. What am I gonna do? I can't understand a single thing my sister-in-law is saying to me. Theodore leaned back in his wide chair and stared off into the distance. Why do you need to join the cadets at all, sister? Couldn't you just assign a knight to train you? I wouldn't ask anyone to devote that much time for my sake, and if I were to do that, they'd struggle to know how to treat me, Rishi said. I want to train without anyone holding back on my account. I can't believe you. Theodore stuck out his tongue in disgust. I would never volunteer to punish myself like that. Rishi didn't want to punish herself. She just wanted to make up for what she lacked. The training period is 10 days, right? Once it's over, I'll just train on my own, but since I came all the way to this country, I might as well experience the Galkine military's renowned instruction. Theodore, who'd been listening with a face in thought, as though he'd longed to be anywhere else, suddenly lit up. Wait a sec. Prince Theodore, I just realized something. The prince had a sweet, girlish smile on his face. It was mildly frightening. He stood, braced a hand on his desk, and peered at Rishi. Very well, I'll help you out, my lovely sister. I'll do everything in my power to grant your request. Huh? Well, I appreciate that, but why the sudden change of heart? Because it seems interesting. Theodore giggled. He must have had some scheme up his sleeve. I don't think even my brother could see this coming. His own wife, dressing as a man and joining his Knight's Corps. The prince sat back down, his mood much improved. I guess you're gonna mess with him. Oh, I can't wait to see what Arnold thinks of this. Oh, boy, he's gonna freaking... I don't know what he'll think of this. He'll be very confused. The prince sat back down, his mood much improved. Okay, you got me. Let's do it. I'll never have such a good opportunity to surprise my brother again. I'm not doing this to surprise Prince Arnold, and didn't you make up with your brother, Prince Theodore? I want the full array of my brother's emotional reactions, you see. Theodore's expression of affection was as bizarre as always. He hummed as he discussed plans with Rishi. I'll make up some background for you. Look for my contact later. Should I make it look like you have previous experience with the sword? You did beat up all my men. It would make no sense to pretend you're inexperienced. You seem confident with this sort of deception. What do you think? I've already proven useful, aren't I? Theodore puffed out his chest, pulling some documents out of a drawer. It didn't exactly surprise Rishi. He had been the one to sneak Elsie into Rishi's maids. Just make sure you're not found out by my brother until it's all over. There's no reason he'd show up at the cadet training grounds, but you should still be careful. I'll make the arrangements so you can go for now. Very well, Rishi bowed. Thank you, Prince Theodore. She had just turned to leave when he called out to her. Hey, listen, I'm overseeing some pending legislation to support the people of the slums. Rishi glanced back, but Theodore was still searching for his documents and hadn't raised his head. They only went through because my brother pushed them from behind the scenes. The two of you are working on it together, then? You could put it that way, yeah. That would have been unthinkable just a short while ago. Arnold had been keeping his brother at a distance while Theodore avoided doing any official political work for his brother's sake. Rishi was delighted to hear that they were working together on a project. That's all I wanted to tell you, he said. See you later. Taking a good look around, Rishi noticed that Theodore's office was extremely neat. According to the maid's gossip, it had been covered in dust until just recently. Don't get hurt during the training either. You're my brother's fiancé. Of course, thank you for your concern, Prince Theodore. Rishi smiled brightly and bowed again. Then she left, which brings us to the present. Ha! After training, Rishi sat at the now deserted water station. Until a little while ago, there had been plenty of other recruits, but they all regained their energy quickly and left to go change. Among the lot of them, only Lucius, Rishi in disguise, was unable to move. This is Galkine's basic training? They'd started the day with running, and Rishi's experience running meant going down a set course, trying to improve your pace each time you did so. But the training these cadets did was different. They had been ordered to run for an hour and a half straight without regard to distance. The instructor merely specified jog at a slightly faster pace than walking. At first, Rishi had thought this was rather lenient, but when she actually tried it, she found it harsh. The other trainees seemed to struggle as well, but as they were all genuine boys and men, they had an easier time finishing the course than Rishi did. Their next task, upper body conditioning, was much the same. They performed exercises that skated toward unreasonable difficulty for minimum minutes at a time, taking breaks between sets. Even if the initial sets were no problem, your fatigue would compound until your whole upper body felt dragged down by a dull weight. Then they ran some more. After a final session of conditioning, their training ended for the day. Ordered to eat a light meal, they received chicken sandwiches, though many of them were in no state to eat. They wouldn't put on muscle without protein, though, since they choked the food down. Cadet training was in the morning. For her, I'm going to sleep in until noon for a while, so please don't wake me up story to hold up, Rishi needed to hurry back to her maids and guards. I haven't trained in a long time. No, I'm conditioning this body for the first time. This will be easier than the rookie training I did as a knight, but I'm still feeling the burn. It feels just as hard. A dull pain settled in her upper arms, muscles already aching. Imagining the soreness yet to come, Rishi sighed. I should feel warm at least. She closed her eyes, enjoying the cool breeze caressing her cheek when someone approached her from behind. Yo, Lucius, you're still not changed? Rishi rolled around to find a young man smiling at her cheerfully. The boy had cropped chestnut brown hair and almond-shaped eyes. He was in training like Rishi. When Rishi had fallen behind on their run, he'd lagged behind too out of concern. I appreciate what you did for me earlier. I believe your name was Fritz, was it not? She said. Haha, don't make it into a big deal. We're all in the same boat, right? And you don't have to be so stiff. Oh, right. Thanks anyway, though. Sure, I'll speak plainly with you, too, if that's okay. Fritz beamed in satisfaction, sitting down beside Rishi. I was about to head back to my lodgings, but I was kind of worried about you. Can you walk? Well, I'd like to say I'm fine, but I think I'll just rest for a while longer. The cadence she'd spoken with as a knight came out more easily than she'd expected. It had been a while, but Fritz was easy to talk to. That probably helped. I'll stay behind, too, then. Huh. No need to worry about me. You should go back and rest. You must be tired. It's fine. I wanted to talk to you, Lucius. You got a compliment from the instructor when you spoke up during his speech, right? Back when the actual training started, you looked like you were dying. You're an interesting guy. He gave her a toothy grin, expression broad and open. I come from far away, so I don't have any friends here. You ever hear of, Kutena? It's a port town in the north. Ships from Koyoes berth there sometimes, too. Koyoes was a place Rishi was intimately familiar with. The snowy country was on the other side of the sea from Galkine, remote and cold. Rishi had lived there in one of her previous lives. I've never been to Kutena, but I know the name. They have great fish there, right? You get tired of it. It's a nice town, though. If I didn't look up to him so much, I wouldn't have bothered to become a knight. I would have just lived my whole life there. Look up to who? Fritz's grin widened, and he thrust his finger at Rishi. Crown Prince Arnold, of course. Rishi froze, but Fritz didn't seem to notice as he happily prowled on. A war hero, a master of the sword, a political genius. People say all sorts of things about him, but he's just so cool, isn't he? Yeah. Rishi managed a half-hearted response, averting her eyes. Things were pretty bad in the war 3 years ago, even up in our port town. But Prince Arnold was amazing. He evacuated the citizens and then took down a whole boatload of enemies. He utilized the terrain or whatever. I didn't fully understand the details. Oh? It's not far, but he's so good with a sword and can do strategy and stuff. I want to ask the knights about him, but he sounds like only his personal guard can really get close. Seeing Fritz talk about Arnold with his eyes sparkling made Rishi feel strangely discomfited. I only saw him once, but Prince Arnold's swordplay isn't just strong, it's beautiful. Hearing that, Rishi couldn't help herself from mumbling, yeah, I get that. When she realized what she'd said, her face flushed. Wait, what did I just... Right, you agree? We agree, so... Wait, that means you've seen Prince Arnold wield his sword, right? Just one time. Fritz paid no heed to the blush spreading across her cheeks. She hung her head, hoping he wouldn't think she was strange. Her face refused to cool down. Why not? Why not? I've told him myself I think his swordplay is beautiful, and just recently, too. Come to think of it, Arnold had been surprised to hear such praise. As Rishi's mind spun in circles, Fritz continued breezily. Even if I can't become like Prince Arnold, I want to get stronger. Fritz stood up and picked up a broom in the corner of the water station. He held it like a sword and took a combat stance. Ha! The broom sliced through the air. Confused, Riche looked up. Fritz, tighten the grip of your pinky. Still holding the strike, Fritz glanced at Riche. My pinky? Yes, when you hold a sword, your grip should be strongest around your pinky. If you're right-handed, grip the hilt harder with your left hand. Let your right hand be about half that tight. Is half enough? Your grip will be uneven without that balance. Don't let your wrists... Yeah, now swing it like that. Like this. Ha! The broom swung down, hissing more sharply through the air. Its trajectory, formerly diagonal, went straight down. With the adjusted grip, he was no longer wasting his strength. Whoa! Fritz observed the difference in the swings. How did you know all this, Lucius? I have a bit of experience with the sword, that's all. You're impressive, though, Fritz. You learn fast. No way, you're the impressive one. Fritz looked down at the broom in his grip, eyes shining. I didn't know just a little instruction could make such a difference. Maybe I really can become like Prince Arnold one day. You two, came a man's voice from behind them, and Fritz and Riche turned to see him. You must not speak so casually of the royal family. You would do well to call him His Highness the Crown Prince. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir, Fritz bowed. Riche stood in and joined him. As long as you understand, be at ease, both of you. Permission granted, the two of them looked back up. The man appeared to be in his mid-30s, his gray hair worn slightly long and fixed in place with product. His was clean and neat, but dark circles haunted his eyes. Despite his scolding, he had a gentle air about him, and he carried himself like a high-ranking noble. He was tall, his musculature obvious even through his clothes. No matter what form it takes, admiration for the royal family is a wonderful thing. Yes, thank you, sir. By the way, pardon me for asking, but are you Lord Lawvin, ruler of our town? Indeed, the man said. I am the Count and heir to House Lawvin. Riche's eyes widened. Wait, this is his lordship, Ludger Lars Lawvin? She looked back at the man before her, swallowing nervously. He's the brave general of Galkine, destined to be slaughtered by Prince Arnold as an enemy of the state. Ludger Lars Lawvin was the count who governed Galkine's northernmost territory. His sin was attempting to prevent Emperor Arnold Hine's spread of tyranny. Though his holding was remote, he was a man of distinguished military service, adored by a great many people. Yet this loyal retainer would be killed by the very man he served. 3 years from now, he would object to Emperor Arnold's war of conquest, and enraged, the Emperor would take his life in retaliation. I heard all sorts of rumors. He was slowly tortured to death. He was beheaded in one strike. Emperor Arnold Hine put his entire family to death to atone for Lord Lawvin's treason. Lawvin's execution was a source of Arnold's universal infamy, and yet here he was, standing before Riche in real time. She shrank under the scrutiny of his gray eyes. Though his bearing was relaxed, he had a demeanor that screamed military man. The Count of the North, an officer talented enough to be trusted with the border. She wouldn't be surprised if he easily figured out that she was a woman. Riche shuddered at the thought. As her anxiety peaked, he said, How do you feel about chicken? Huh? Her jaw dropped. Lord Lawvin continued to look at her like he'd said something exceedingly normal. Ignoring Riche and Fritz's confusion, he went on dispassionately. If you don't like chicken, any other meat will do. And there's legumes, eggs, and milk. Or are you not a fan of those either? No, I like them. I like all food. I see, that's good. What the heck is this conversation? Maybe he's telling you to bulk up and get protein if you want to get stronger? Much as she yearned to ask, the Count's manner shut out all possibility of questioning. Just as she expected, he solemnly nodded. Or added, if your circumstances allow such indulgences, you should eat more. You appear to have more muscle mass than the average man. Oh, is that all? Yes, sir. Thank you for your advice, Riche said, relaxing. She had learned plenty about the sort of food needed to cultivate a strong body in her life as an apothecary. Such wisdom wasn't yet widespread, but that was likely what Lawvin was referring to. Still, I already proved during my life as a knight that I'll never have the muscle mass as a man, no matter how much I eat. Lawvin nodded in satisfaction. Youths like you should always aim to improve yourselves. I'll be assisting with your instructions starting tomorrow. I look forward to seeing how you perform. Wow, you'll be teaching us, Lord Lawvin? Awesome. I am most honored. Upon seeing how excited Fritz was, Lawvin's expression relaxed a little. I am overjoyed to have a hand in teaching promising young people. I was detained later than I was meant to be, so I couldn't attend today's practice. What are your thoughts? Fritz and Riche exchanged a glance, and Fritz was first to answer. To be honest, I found it very accommodating. I was prepared to run until I puked, or train until I couldn't stand up anymore. I was surprised too, Riche said. We were allowed breaks to drink water and rest between exercises. I heard some stories of nice training in other countries. They're far harsher on new recruits. True. The Count offered an understanding nod. It was the same here until just a few years ago. During the war, we needed battle-ready forces as fast as we could get them. By training new recruits harshly, you weed out those who can't hack it and send the rest to the front lines as quickly as possible. But, someone did away with those harsh practices. You two can rest easy. Come to think of it, Lieutenant Oliver had mentioned that he'd suffered an injury and thus couldn't become a knight. If Oliver's injury had occurred during training, Riche could easily guess who might have changed these practices. What we, your seniors that is, are charged with is not to pick out exceptional use, but to encourage everyone's growth. I'll see you two at training, now if you'll excuse me. Lavin turned to speak with an approaching knight. Lord Lavin, His Majesty awaits your arrival. Please report to the audience chamber. Right, I'll be there presently. Tomorrow then, you two. Fritz and Riche bowed as Lavin left the training grounds. Thank you for speaking to us. Riche felt the cogs in her mind turning as she held the post. His Majesty, huh? I never met him myself, but he lives here in the palace, doesn't he? She had been in Galkind for over a month. The palace was expansive, true enough, but for Riche to have failed to run into him even once implied someone was deliberately preventing an encounter. Not that I'm His Majesty's highest concern right now. By and by, she looked up to find Fritz taking deep breaths, a hand splayed on his chest. Whew, that was nerve-wracking, wasn't it, Lucius? I never expected to speak with Lord Lavin. Really? You look like you kept your cool, Fritz. No way. Although it's nice to hear you say that. Anyway, are you free? Let's eat together. As much as Riche would have loved to join him, she had places to be. Sorry, but I'm afraid I have to go. I have work in the afternoon. Got it. Bit of a shame, but there's no way around it. Good luck at work. Thanks. See you tomorrow. Riche jogged off a training ground, slipping into a nearby storage room and removing her wig. Instead of changing into her dress, she put on a maid's uniform. Placing her training clothes in a laundry basket, she covered it with some sheets and returned to the detached palace disguised as a servant. She entered her room in the usual fashion, via the balcony, her arms quivering on her way up the rope, nearly bringing her to tears. I'm back, Elsie. Welcome back. I got everything prepared for you. She took a quick bath with some help from Elsie, her only maiden on the cross-dressing. Rinsing off the sweat, she changed into a clean dress and dolled herself up. Drawing the light waves of her coral hair, she ran a comb through it, and thus her preparations were complete. Good morning, Lady Riche. Morning, everyone. Her fatigue leaked into her tone, endangering her cover story of sleeping until noon before relaxing in the bath. But her maids didn't seem to notice. Returning to her room from the bath chamber with a handful of maids, she ran into an unexpected guest. Prince Arnold? Hey. Before she could exclaim how fortuitous she found their meeting, Riche realized why he was here. Accompanying him were several knights, all carrying things into the space prepared for Arnold's office. How's the move going, she asked. Who can say? I'm not the one doing it. My lord, your highness, your instructions are far too general. Oliver poked his head out of the office. Seeing Riche, he smiled. If it isn't Lady Riche, thank you for the wonderful room you prepared for His Highness. Of course, Oliver. I just hope it proves to be a productive work environment. Apropos of nothing, did you just call His Highness my lord? She glanced at Arnold. He looked extremely unamused. I keep telling him to stop using that title. It's creepy. He won't listen to me. More importantly, do you want last month's documents on the right-hand bookshelf? Please, just come inside. Oliver returned to the office directing the knights. That title. Is it just me, or is he attempting to clearly denote Prince Arnold as his master rather than the Emperor? She made a mental note to inquire further. As she considered the matter, Arnold called her name. Riche. He bent down and whispered directly into her ear. Come to the western gate tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon. Don't let anyone see you. His husky voice tickled her ear. As Arnold pulled away, Riche reached up, cupped a hand around her mouth to whisper, Should I dye my hair? No need to go that far. Very well, I'll wear something appropriate for town. She dropped back down and stepped away from Arnold when she noticed the maids staring at them. What? The maids were watching Riche and Arnold with flushed cheeks and glittering eyes. It hadn't occurred to her, but how their furtive whispers might read to an audience. Your Highness, please, called Oliver from the office. Shut up, I'm coming. Arnold followed him in a huff. Riche parted ways with the rest of the twittering maids, heading back to her room with Elsie, who was also acting strange. Lady Riche, why were you speaking in secret just now? Well, you see, Elsie, I've got an engagement with Prince Arnold tomorrow, Riche said, outside the palace. Elsie's eyes lit up. What sort of outing will this be? He didn't tell me, but it was an order, so I'm sure he just wants help with some official business. Oh. Regardless, I need to dress covertly tomorrow. Would a brown dress work, you think? I have a gray robe as well. I can scuff it up to look like I've been traveling. Oh! Riche exclaimed as Elsie grasped her hand. Leave it to me, Lady Riche. Huh? Leave what? You must absolutely positively leave tomorrow's preparations to me. Don't worry, you'll look cute as a button, my lady. Elsie's impassioned declaration gave Riche a bad feeling. Listen, Elsie, I'm just going into town for business, so don't trouble yourself. It's no trouble. Your clothes, your hair, everything must be perfect. Riche had never seen Elsie this motivated. She was vibrating with excitement, blind to the discomfort she was causing her mistress. I'll make sure you look fit for tomorrow, but your clothes can't be drab. I'll borrow some clothes from Miss Diana. In fact, I'll go fetch her right now. You two really get along well now, don't you? Hey, wait a second. Hang on. Do I want to keep going? I'll end it off here. I'll see you guys in the next one.